Hello ladies and gentlemen, yes, Zeke here again today to bring you a quick painting video, just what's on the table today, which happens to be this little guy from Turnip 28. If you guys do not know what Turnip 28 is, oh, what is going on with the camera right now? If you guys do not know what Turnip 28 is, I highly recommend the game. Why is that happening to the camera? It's like swapping between two different camera types. It's Napoleonic Turnip Punk, and this guy's rather simple. He doesn't have that much detail to him, but I'm going to paint him up all grungy like, and we're going to have a good time. So the first step in oil painting is always, or almost always, to do a pre-glaze. A pre-glaze is just, I'm trying to find the brush for it right now, I'm not entirely ready. It's just a general all-over paint job of one or two colors. I'm just going to use one color here, and I'm going to bring over my mediums. This right here is mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits, and this is linseed oil, which I use to clean my brushes. So I'm going to mix a decent amount of mineral spirits into this brown here until it is flowing nicely but still pretty opaque, and then I'm going to paint it all over this model. So let's just go do that really quickly. You don't have to be careful at all with this. I'm going to add a tiny bit of black to this to make it a tiny bit darker and more stainy. This has a couple of functions. First of all, it essentially acts like a primer for oil paints. It gives them something to blend into so that you can actually, paint. Oil painting is all about blending, so often having something to blend into to start with is very, very helpful. So just going to cover the entire model, and then I'm going to pause the recording for a tiny bit, or maybe even cover another model in this brown, because you kind of want to let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes after you've covered it in order to get it to stain very nicely. So let's show this to the camera now. You can see he is looking very sloppy, which is absolutely perfect. So let's throw him down and then pick up this. This is a model from Chaos. I'll put his store in the description. It's not focusing on it. There we go. It's a very, very fun kind of like commissarial leader model. Oh, it's doing that thing again where it swaps between two modes over and over again. What is going on with that? Okay, and I'm going to once again lighten this up a little bit, put a bit of black in it so that it would get a blackish brown, add a bit of linseed oil, add a tiny bit more mineral spirits, and then just cover them all over with the dark brown that I get from that. So this is a bit of an experimental video. I'm trying my hardest to keep things in frame as I paint. I should also be using my paint handles, as I find them very helpful, and whenever I forget to use them, I paint worse. So I'll be sticking these two to a custom paint handle that I have. If anybody wants it from me, please just message me on, or leave me a comment, and I'll give you my Discord handle, and I'll pass you the handles. They are very unique handles that I quite enjoy. I designed them partially myself, partially with help. More with help than myself. The ones I designed myself, they do the job, but they are not pretty. The one that was designed with me is this one right here, which doesn't look like much of a handle, but you get this thing here and attach it, and it slots into either side, so you can actually get it out of the way if you need to. And then you put the model on here. There's also a magnet hole so that you can actually magnetize the model to it if you want. And then this isn't a handle you hold exactly. This is a handle that you use to balance your hand so that you can get more precision with the brush. So you can use lots of different hand grips with it in order to get into multiple different spots. You can hold it like this, rest your hand against the palm, hold it like this. Lots of really cool ways to hold this handle in order to get a bit more precision. But mainly I am wasting time here because I want to go ahead and grab a sponge. Just a regular makeup sponge does the trick. If you can buy them in these giant bricks, they're quite cheap. Rip them into a few pieces so you don't end up wasting too much of it. And then use that in order to clean up the model that you just put paint all over. Let me get a second one of these handles real quick, leaning in close to the mic, give you some ASMR, I guess. So then you just want to go in there and you want to take off pretty much everything you've put on. You don't want to leave it too wet because blending into an incredibly wet thing is a bit difficult. Although it is doable, you use dry paint to blend into wet and wet paint to blend into dry when you use oil paints. I wonder why it's switching modes like that when it focuses sometimes. So, in all honesty, he's already looking pretty Turnip 28 like. It's a very dirty setting, so things tend to look quite a bit like this when they're done too in it, but there is still a lot more to do on him. So let's get started. I'm going to pretty much exclusively use a very tiny brush. That is, if I can find said very tiny brush. It's a Da Vinci. Here's a little Da Vinci sable. I tend to not use sables with oil paints because oil paints will ruin brushes faster. I tend to use a lot of very cheap brushes, but at the moment I can't seem to locate my favorite tiny brush, so this Da Vinci sable is on hand and I don't feel like getting up. Take a sip of coffee, move this back in screen, and then get started. Let me actually set the focal length on this camera here real quick so that I don't continually go in and out of focus. If I just go to this and then set manual focus, I can set the focus to where I want, which is about here. And then whenever I want to show it to you guys, I can actually just move it to where I want the focus to be. Okay, so I'm gonna start out by grabbing his pants. Really, I should be using reference for this. I'm gonna do his pants and his little sleeping bag here in a yellow ochre. I'm just shaping the brush on the side of that right now, and then I'm just going to kind of go over in the yellow ochre. I'm not going to try to get into all the cracks. I left the cracks dirty on purpose. I want that brown to show through in all the cracks and just shade them nicely. So let's go ahead and quickly grab the yellow on that backpack so you guys can see that nicely now. I don't think the yellow will suit his pants, but if I take some of this yellow and mix it with the brown black down here, I end up with this kind of like dirty, muddy color. Unfortunately, you guys can't see it because it's all a reflection right now because it's so wet, but you'll be able to see it once I apply it to the pants here. So now his pants are more of a dirty yellow-brown ochre. Let's get a bit more brown in there. Yeah, there we go. I do notice he seems to have some sort of guard on his boots. The boots are going to be leather, so I'm going to add a tiny bit of red to the brown in order to get a nice leather tone. So I have some crimson up here. It's a tiny bit dry, but I'll just burrow underneath the skin of it and then bring it over here to get a nice reddish brown. If I add some white to that, which is also kind of dry, that'll lighten up quite a bit. And now I have something resembling a reddish brown. You always want to add a fair amount of red to leathers because leather is essentially just skin tone, and skin tone has a lot of red. It is tanned skin tone, but it is still mostly just skin tone. So let's grab those on the edge of his boots. He does have those metal plates as well that I am going to be trying to avoid as I do this. If you're wondering about the music playing, it's just some royalty-free bit tunes that I found by searching royalty-free bit tunes. It's pretty good though, especially the starting song. Let me actually put that on again. Where did it go? Really like this first one. Has a nice start to it. Excellent. So as you can see, already a fair amount of this is done. Let me actually adjust my focus so I can get it a bit closer to the camera here. So got his boots mostly done. Still need to get just in here a little bit. Set that focus to a bit further away again, because now I'm in macro focus range. And you can see, that's my palette right there, a bit shiny on that, there we go. On that paint that I'm currently using. Another thing that is common for me to do when painting in oils is to actually have a second brush on hand that is essentially a clean brush. And I just use that brush in order to pick up some of the moisture from the model that I'm painting. And then I brush it on my hand or on a paper towel, usually a paper towel because that's nearby. But I'm trying to keep everything in frame here. I'll also use it to kind of like mix some of the colors up. So I'm adding a tiny bit of this reddish brown to the pants as well. And then I'm going to head to the metallics here. I have a really nice metallic oil paint, except it doesn't have very thick coverage unless you add a tiny bit of black to it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Grab the metallic paint from the top, add a tiny bit of black, and then just start working my way through some of these armor panels that I see here. Get a nice metallic tone to them. You can add different colors to the metals. Most metal oil paints work more like a metallic medium than they do like an oil paint in their own right. Or at least so far in my experience I found that to be the case. So adding more colors to them is very, very helpful. Might as well grab this sword while I have the metal on the palette. You might notice I'm not being way too cautious about going over the lines or painting anything in the wrong place. I don't think that is super important in order to get a good result. It is mildly important at best. So he's wearing a coat, but he's wearing a breastplate that is over top of the coat. So let's try to get that breastplate and his main face mask in a nice metallic too. So once again, gonna give it a little show off. And then he has a bit of a halberg, how do you pronounce that anyways, on right now. So I'm gonna use some mineral spirits to revive these paints a little bit, add a tiny bit more black to it, once again just to get some opacity on that. And go over one more time, grab his halberg, which I think is how you pronounce it, and now I have a good boy who is going meow at me. I don't know what color his coat should be. I don't want to kind of just go brown with everything, but I don't really want him to have too much color on him. So I guess another type of brown is probably the solution here. Ah, where's my mini paintbrush? There's the big one right there. I'll have to find it later. So let's go ahead and make his coat a green since I have it on the palette already. I'm a big believer in using what is on your palette. So I picked up some of the green from up here, which is kind of an olive green, so you can't see it very well with how shiny it is. But then I'm mixing it in with some of this brown to get like a green brown, and I'm gonna make his clothing that color. It isn't getting very intense coverage, so I'm gonna get a tiny bit more oil in there and just go with a straight green. Yeah, there we go. So that also tells me what color to make his shirt. Up here, both his sleeves. Nice green. Add a bit more of that. Certain oil paints are dangerous and you don't want to paint on you. They're all a bit toxic. Most of them are just linseed oil and pigment, which isn't too bad for you, but if you end up getting like a cadmium green or cadmium yellow, cadmium red, you're going to want to be careful not to get that on your skin or to lick the brush. And in general, you don't want to lick the brush while doing oil painting because you are using mineral spirits as a thinner. Okay, here we go so far. Let's grab that reddish brown that I used for his boots and use it again for this backpack right here. And actually the boots are not quite reddish brown enough, so I'm going to put a second coat on the boots. And then I'm going to go ahead and also pick out this belt in this reddish brown while I have it, because this belt I assume is a leather belt that is holding this up. You always want white and black on a palette when painting, and especially when painting in oil, so that you can very quickly, there we go. So you can very quickly just highlight by going into the white and adding it to the color you're using at present. Some of these highlights are going to be hard to see until I've varnished this mini, but they're still worth putting on right now. Let's get my dry brush out here and pick up some of this moisture here, even out this whole area. And get rid of some of that, and then shape that on my finger and just go ahead and paint in some highlights on this backpack. There we go. Paint some highlights on the shoes. Well, if you put a color somewhere, you might as well put the color a lot of places. And once you have it on your brush, just keep spinning the mini and see where it happens to suit, and then just throw the color on wherever you think it could use a tiny bit of it. Okay, now I need a more woody color, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some yellow to that red. And then I'm going to add a tiny bit of white to that yellow. And then I'm going to start kind of with a darker brown, then I'm going to move into that yellow in order to kind of get a more scratched up wood tone to this rifle. And anything else that might happen to be made of wood. What I'll do is sword handle in that while I'm at it, because why not? And his stock. Often for guns I will go with a much richer wood tone. That's only because guns tend to be made and taken care of, or like quite well. So these guns are guns in Turnip 28. They are going to be absolute trash after being barely cobbled together and then used for years in the trenches. Added a tiny bit more white to the top of this gun for some highlight. And then I'm moving back into my metal paint because I forgot to do the bayonet. So I'll just quickly grab that bayonet and the tip of the rifle. Okay, and now for the wood of the base here. Again, gonna start out with a nice brown. The dark brown here, I'm gonna add a tiny bit of red to it in order to get something like an earth shade, like a Terra Rosa earth shade. And I'm gonna actually paint all the dirt that Terra Rosa earth shade. If you get some on his boot like I just did, that's actually a positive. Just enjoy that, because he would have some dirt on his boots. Clean the brush a tiny bit. Head back to that yellow and kind of start putting that down on these planks. Old wood has a lot of yellows, grays. If you want to go like black and then add some white to it in order to get a gray, that's going to look quite nice there. Get some of that gray into the Terra Rosa to dull it down a little bit. And I am more or less done. I will try to post the main picture for this video as the finished product. I might as well actually add a tiny bit of white to my brush and then put it through the metal and try to get like a lighter metal and highlight this a little bit with a lighter metal on the top, and that as well. Get his hands, because I hadn't done them yet. He can be wearing metal gauntlets, why not? And I am done. Simple model, quick paint job, but very satisfied with the result. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little paint along, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.